Nelson Mandela was born on July 18, 1918, in the village of Mvezo, in the Eastern Cape of South Africa. His father, Gadla Henry Mafakanyiswa, was a chief of the Thembu people, but he passed away when Mandela was just 9 years old. After his father's death, Mandela was sent to live with the Thembu regent, Yongintaba Dalindyebo, who became a father figure to him. Mandela grew up during a time of deep racial injustice. South Africa was ruled under apartheid, a system of institutionalized racial segregation that oppressed the majority black population. White people held power, and laws severely restricted the rights of non-white South Africans. For Mandela, the inequality he witnessed from a young age ignited a desire for justice and a deep understanding of the need for change. While studying at the University of Fort Hare and later at the University of Witwatersrand, Mandela became increasingly aware of the racial divisions in South Africa. He studied law and, in 1942, joined the African National Congress, ANC, a political party that sought to challenge apartheid and fight for the rights of black South Africans. He was determined to use the law as a tool to fight for equality. By the late 1940s, the ANC had become a powerful force in South Africa's resistance to apartheid, but the movement was often met with violence and repression. In 1948, the National Party came to power in South Africa and implemented the apartheid system more aggressively, solidifying the racial divisions. Mandela, along with other ANC leaders, decided that peaceful protest alone was not enough to bring about change. In 1961, after years of peaceful demonstrations and being met with brutal responses from the apartheid government, Mandela became involved in the formation of the ANC's armed wing, Umkhonto we Sizwe, Spear of the Nation. They launched acts of sabotage against government facilities, though Mandela always insisted that the armed struggle was a last resort. In 1962, Mandela was arrested and charged with inciting strikes and leaving the country illegally. During his trial, he was sentenced to 5 years in prison. While serving his sentence, the apartheid government learned that Mandela was still deeply involved in the anti-apartheid struggle. In 1964, he was put on trial again in the famous Rivonia trial, accused of sabotage and attempting to overthrow the government. Despite facing the death penalty, Mandela gave a speech that would become one of the most iconic in history. In his statement from the dock, Mandela said, "I have cherished the ideal of a democratic and free society in which all persons live together in harmony and with equal opportunities. It is an ideal which I hope to live for and to achieve. But if needs be, it is an ideal for which I am prepared to die." Mandela was sentenced to life imprisonment and was sent to the infamous Robben Island prison off the coast of Cape Town. For 18 of his 27 years in prison, he endured hard labor, poor conditions, and constant harassment from the authorities. Yet even in these harsh conditions, Mandela never wavered in his resolve. His spirit remained unbroken, and he became a symbol of the struggle for freedom not only in South Africa, but around the world. While Mandela was in prison, the fight against apartheid continued to gain momentum. International pressure mounted, with countries and organizations around the world calling for sanctions against the apartheid regime. Inside South Africa, protests and uprisings intensified. The apartheid government found itself under increasing pressure to change. In 1989, F.W. de Klerk became the president of South Africa and recognized that the apartheid system was no longer sustainable. In 1990, Nelson Mandela was released from prison, and his release marked the beginning of the end for apartheid. But Mandela's journey was far from over.